YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, coming to you from Marbad's tomb, where it's still a tomb. Yeah, I didn't have any lame joke to start with, so I apologize. Yeah, anyway, Marbad's tomb. I think that's what it's called, or something like that. Anyway, I'm gonna play Greenskins. I'm up against the Wood Elves, and the Wood Elves have their Glady back here on the dragon. Everybody seems to be into the Glady. I'm honestly far more scared of Durthu when I see that in a Wood Elf army, but people really seem to like the skirmishy Glade Lady, which I now call Glady thanks to the awesome recommendation of a viewer. You can see there's a ancient tree man, or hang on, a tree man, not an ancient tree man, just a tree man, no ancient there. Some Eternal Guard out on the flanks, cool looking units. There's some War Dancers back here. And there's some Dryads in the center, which Dryads are an interesting pick. They would probably be better against low armor greenskin units, potentially. And then there's several units of archers with Hagbane tips up front. So, interesting. They can slow down my units, and they cause decent damage. There's not bad damage on Hagbane tips. You can see these Orc Biggins of mine are getting beat up pretty bad. So my front line is Biggins. I don't feel the need to bring armor-piercing infantry versus the Elves, obviously, because they don't really have a lot of armor. Unless it ends up being a tree army, in which case I would have been glad to have the bonus versus large, but still. I've got two Boar Biggins, a Night Gobbo Shaman, Durusty Errors, a Ragnarok Queen, two Goblin Big Bosses, and one Goblin War Boss on his Cave Squig, or Mountain Squig, whatever the heck it is. I got two regular Gobbos as well. So that's my front line, and I've got some Night Goblins behind my main line for the poison and just some extra attack. Went ahead and dropped his Spiderling unit out front because my opponent didn't appear to be retreating his archers fast enough. So I'm going to come just straight into my opponent here. I mean, he's trying to do some skirmishing with his Lord and some of the other units, but it's not significant enough to really scare me that much yet. And so I want to just bring my units headlong in here. Use my Night God. Look at that War Boss eating a Dryad, or an Elf Archer, it looks like. Nice Squig. Good Squig. So I'm going to use all the greenskin buffs and debuffs, so I'm stacking Itchy Nuisance with Sneaky Stabbin', with Wah, and all the other stuff that's available. And you can see the Tree Man's going to come in here, and this honestly isn't a great fight for Tree Man because you got a lot of anti-large here. And the Tree Man's not going to really like that. So again, combining the Night Goblins with the Biggins, so it's poison, plus the melee damage that the Biggins do. So I'm hoping that the differential here will really wrap up Wood Elf units pretty quickly, and you can see it is working for the most part. Now my Boar Biggins get mixed into the fight quite a bit here, more than I wanted to, and I was kind of ambushed by some Wild Riders, and Wild Riders actually do surprisingly well versus Orc Biggins, and I think it's because the Biggins don't have any real armor, so to speak. That the Wild Riders, they seem to hit much better than you would expect against a cavalry that actually has a bonus versus large. And he's trying really hard here with those Wild Riders to bypass some of my boars and get into my Rusty Errors, which I guess is a big deal. It's really not that big a deal because the Rusty Errors are just so that I would have... Honestly, they were just in the army I picked. I didn't really have a particular use for them against Wood Elves. I mean, the Armor Sundering may be useful against, tree units, but other than that, you can see my Spider being attacked by the Glady back here. And in terms of main line, pretty easily cutting through. There's some War Dancers here trying to hold the line, but and War Dancers do, again, decent versus low armor units, but they're pretty overwhelmed here. And with the Night Gobbos and Gobbos and everything mixed into this, there's just a lot of units being thrown at the Elves, and I don't believe the Elven units really have the punch to knock this out. So these Wild Riders actually did take out my cavalry. I dropped another Spiderling here just to stay in their way, to keep them from doing damage, so just using these guys for disruptive purposes at this point. You can see the Tree Man going down there to the Spider. He's going to get back up, so I guess it was just being knocked over. That kind of sucks if you have a big unit like that and it gets knocked completely over. Again, more Itchy Nuisance and Sneaky Stabbin' here for my guys. So you can see that's going to be a lot of pain for the Wood Elves. You get that huge differential between units. These archers were being a pain. So again, just going to bring the Spiderlings over here. The Ragnarok Queen is very useful with this kind of thing. You can see they're still firing, though. I don't know if that's a product of guard mode or what. But at least I have a unit trying to slow them down. It's not doing a lot. So you can see the situation here. I've got the main line of the Wood Elves pretty much torn apart. There's some regrouped Dryads that have come back, and these Wild Riders are still being a bit pesky. But they're getting hit by the Rusty Errors that they originally attacked, and then they're going to get charged by a regrouped Boar Boy Biggin. So that'll pretty much put an end to the Wild Riders. And then the Glady is one of the only things left, but she would have to come down to the ground, and down on the ground she'd be met by 2 big bosses, a Night Goblin War Boss, and the Arachnarok Queen. So as you can imagine, that plus the Biggins is not really a place that she wants to come down and visit. So let's take a look here. My spider looks to be seeking out some of these archers that have regrouped. And I've got a big boss headed out this way to greet them. See, he's going to get into these archers and start wreaking some havoc. That's pretty cool looking. The big boss is a neat unit. Riding around on the spider. And speaking of spiders, there's a rather large one bearing down on them in the distance. So yeah, most of what's left of the Wood Elf army at this point is like all spread out all over the map. I can kind of show you. They're just being spread out, chased down, and destroyed. So that's why I'm over here getting a close-up of the spider munching on some juicy elf dinner. Because why not? When at Marbad's Tomb, you gotta stop and try some of the poisoned elf. It's delicious. Anyway, hope y'all enjoyed the battle. I've got one more to show you here. So, GG to my opponent. Appreciate the game. The Wood Elf army was honestly a bit strange. And in this case, I was able to gain, I mean, it calls it a close victory. It was a pretty clear victory for the Greenskins there. I had a lot of powerful units left at that point. Not trying to like say it to rub it in, just saying the game's kind of weird there, where it'll say close victory or something like that when sometimes it's not. So here's another one I recently played. This one's going to be using what I call my Grimgor Smash army. This army sounds tougher than it probably really is. There's a lot of things that can shut it down, but if you get it in the right situation, it can be quite good. And we'll see whether or not this is one of those situations. I was actually kind of hoping that my opponent would bring this army because I wanted to try this out. I was like, man, I really hope my opponent brings the double or triple Shaggoth build, and sure enough, my opponent's gone triple Shaggoth. Kolek plus 2 goons. He's got 3 of these aspiring champions buffing up the stats, the leadership, I should say, of the Chaos Warriors with great weapons, which make up his front line. Now, Chaos Warriors with great weapons is a risky pick versus Greenskins in some ways. I mean, they're a pretty sturdy unit, but they're an armor-piercing unit, and the Greenskins can bring Black Orcs, and Black Orcs tend to beat these guys pretty soundly. But these guys would have the best chance of damaging the Black Orcs in return. Now, if the Greenskins bring like a whole bunch of unarmored units, units like this Forsaken would be much better in dishing out the damage. Of course, Biggins can dish out a lot of damage too. They can dish out a considerable amount of damage, but Forsaken have a great charge and they're fast, and in general, just a nice unit to bring. My army is 4 Black Orcs because black is the new green, folks. I've got 2 Biggins, a giant Arachnarok Queen, Grimgor with Gitsnik, and a Night Gobbo Shaman right behind him. And what I did here was I raise up a unit of Spiderlings just to slow all his units down and rob him of the charge, and it works beautifully here. Now he does get a Shaggoth through my lines and somewhat intercept one of mine, but for the most part I caught 2 units of his warriors with great weapons and was able to charge them with my Black Orcs. So his Shaggoths get to work, and I'm going to move in. At this point I went ahead and regrouped my leaders into one. I think I mess it up for just a moment, but I get them regrouped. I'll give you a quick overview just so you can see what's going on. It's just a frontline charge. His Forsaken and other units are coming in. His Shaggoth comes in. Both Shaggoths. But with the Giant, the Arachnarok Queen, and Grimgor, I'm putting down absurd damage. I'm able to use Wah, Itchy Nuisance, Sneaky Stabbing. So you can see here that Wah is in play, and then here shortly my Gobbo Shaman's going to start dropping stuff in here as well. And you can just create this huge differential between your units and the enemy units, and it's a big deal. It's a real big deal. It can turn the tides of fight pretty significantly. There comes the Sneaky Stabbing, and the Itchy Nuisance should be right behind it. Yep, there it goes. So the Itchy Nuisance, Sneaky Stabbing, just to give you kind of a quick example, see how much damage, or like how much it does to the Shaggoth's stats there. It's a big deal. And then you look at your own units, and you know they get buffed by Wah and Sneaky Stabbing, and it creates this massive differential. The whole time I've been using these Spiderlings to get the rear charge penalty against the Chaos units, and it's been working really wonderfully. So I've got the little Spiderlings out and about all over the place getting the rear charge penalty, and it's helping wrap up the Chaos units in a big hurry. So even with the unit a faction without the Skirmishers, the Spiderlings can be extremely helpful. That rear charge penalty is no joke. And plus they poison units, I believe, that they attack. Take a look at it and see, but let's see where the Spiderling get to. Spider hatchlings. Yeah, it has poison. And right here you can see with the sneaky stabbing, they're causing significant damage too in melee damage. So we drive off Kolek, one of the Shaggoths is dead, and my leader core here is just kind of pushing on board with the Blackworks, definitely dominating the fight against the Chaos Warriors with great weapons. There's just nothing that the Shaggoths can do. I mean, they're hitting hard here, but there's just too many of my leaders hitting them at once, and they take massive damage. Shaggoth is definitely a tough unit, but it just can't dish the damage fast enough. And when all three of them get together, it still wasn't enough at this point. So I was able to eke out a pretty clear victory there. Again, it's going to call it a close victory, but a pretty clear victory there because I didn't lose any of my leader units. And all of my Blackworks were still intact, although some weaker than others. So again, in this case, worked out good, and it does seem to be a pretty nice way, at least with the way that this triple Shaggoth build was built. Now, there may be other double Shaggoth builds that are a lot trickier, like ones that bring a couple of Manticore or something like that. You would have to keep an eye out for that because it's going to change the way that you have to counter it. The Manticore are much more mobile, and here it was a lot easier for me to use the Spider Hatchlings for disruption because everything he had was on the ground. If a couple of those units were up in the air, I definitely think it would have changed potentially how this turned out. Now, Blackworks are immune to psychology, which is another big reason I threw them in there. You know, if they're immune to psychology, all of that terror and fear that Chaos can typically use against you can't really work. Now, you can demoralize a Black Orc, but it won't happen by terror. And again, as long as my hatchlings are the ones doing the rear attacking, and then the itchy nuisance and stuff, my guys tended to be winning the combat, which means their leadership is going to tend to hold pretty strong. So worked out good for me there. What'd you think? Did you enjoy it? I hope you did. I had fun in these battles. Appreciate my opponents giving me the game. Appreciate you, my awesome viewer, for watching these, and I do hope you enjoy them. I love making it for you. It's a real privilege every night to come up and make this for you. I'm on travel this week, and I come back to the hotel, and I'm excited to come back and make content for you, and I love seeing the comments. I apologize I haven't gotten back to them as much as I went over the last couple days. I am very busy during the day, but I do read it every time I get a break, and really appreciate the comments and the fun that people have with it. Appreciate MSI for sponsoring the build that I record on, the motherboard that they gave me there. Much appreciated, helping to make my videos better, and hope you all enjoy it. I'll see you back next time. HeirofCarthage signing out for now.